Hi everybody, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome. My name is Gabby, and if you've never been here before, never watched any of my videos, have no idea what I do, I cover true crime cases, and all the cases that I cover are a little bit older. They're all basically 20 years or older, so if that's something that you might be interested in, maybe go down below, click the subscribe button, and also make sure to turn on the post notifications to be notified every time that I upload. So for our second video this year of December, which is a series that I do every single December where I cover just cases of John and Jane Doe's, we're going to be covering a case that I'm pretty sure a lot of you have never heard of. A woman who was found nude, tied up with twine, and disposed of in garbage bags in a rural area of Mississippi in 1980. A woman who, despite undergoing every investigative technique available, after 44 years still remains unidentified. This is the unsolved murder of Miss Wiggins. I do want to say that this Jane Doe has been called Miss Wiggins and Ms. Wiggins. I'm going to be calling her Miss Wiggins for this video because that's what she's most referred to as. This case takes place right outside of Wiggins, Mississippi. Wiggins is a small city in Stone County that in the early 1900s was most known for its booming timber industry. Over time, that industry had declined in the area, making way for Wiggins being mostly known for its pickle production. It was once home to the world's largest pickle processing facility. The pickle facility is no longer in operation, and now Wiggins is a place possessing a small town feel all year long. Back at the time this crime took place, 1980, Wiggins had a population of roughly 3,200 people. Now let's get into the case itself. The date was Sunday, October 5th of 1980. Two hunters, brothers 19-year-old Kent Ainsworth and 21-year-old Dawn Ainsworth, were scoping out a buck in a thicket not far off of Highway 26 East near Wiggins, Stone County, Mississippi, when they stumbled upon something that would forever be ingrained in their minds. As they were cutting through the woods, Dawn saw what looked like a skull peeking out from under a shrub. He shouted to his brother, "Something died there." The two thought it to be an animal at first. Dawn looked a little closer and saw auburn-colored hair attached to the skull. Dawn said to his brother, "Dang, Kent, that's somebody." Kent asked, "What do you mean?" Dawn responded, "That's a person." Upon seeing the long hair, the two brothers came to the conclusion that it was the body of a woman. At first, it was believed she had been stuffed in one trash bag. Later, it was discovered to be two. The brothers wasted no time in returning to their father's home to alert law enforcement about their discovery. Eldon Ladner of the Stone County Sheriff's Department promptly responded to the call. Officers from various departments arrived, gathered statements from the brothers, and proceeded to the location where the remains were found. They were all accompanied by the state crime lab. This woman had no identification on her and as a result was classified as a Jane Doe. Sheriff Ladner informed a Biloxi Daily Herald reporter that the Stone County Sheriff's Department at that time had no leads on her identity. Despite not having concrete evidence, officials had a strong feeling this woman was not from the local area. This assumption was made based on the fact that she did not match the description of any missing women in the vicinity. Her hands and feet had been bound together with twine, further proving the theory that she most likely was a victim of homicide. Someone did this to her. It is believed she had been strangled to death and had been transported in the trash bags to the location from her original location of death. It is believed she had been in that area off Highway 26 East for roughly 6 months before she was found by the Ainsworth brothers. Within the first year, her skeletal remains had been sent to forensic scientists locally to 40 miles south in Biloxi, to Oklahoma, to Washington, D.C., and finally back to Biloxi. After roughly a year, all investigators really had was an overall description of her and her believed cause of death. Clay busts of the Jane Doe would be made showing what she may have looked like in life, mostly thanks to medical illustrator Petty Pat Gatliff. Her remains were examined by Dr. J. Lawrence Angel, curator of physical anthropology for the Smithsonian Institution. She had shoulder-length red-brown hair. Her eye color could not be determined based on the level of decomposition. She was believed to be between the ages of 32 and 45 at the time of her death, and guessed to have stood between 5 feet 3 inches tall and 5 feet 6 inches tall. She had healed injuries that looked like she may have gotten into a car accident, possibly during her teenage years. She had a healed right clavicle fracture and a healed nasal fracture with nasal bridge deviation to the right. She was most likely right-handed and had a muscular build. She may have worked a physical job or was an athlete. No clothing was found on her remains, in the trash bags, or anywhere nearby. This Jane Doe had extensive dental work done, including several root canals and 4 platinum dental bridges. Dr. Angel stated that an examination of her teeth indicated that the woman was, quote, the careful wife of a fairly wealthy man. It is also believed she may have given birth years prior to her death, so she could have a child or children out there somewhere wondering whatever happened to their mother. Due to this woman being found near Wiggins, Mississippi, she was ultimately given the name Miss Wiggins. This is what she has been referred to as ever since. Very little was discovered near her remains besides a torn piece of the Las Vegas Mirror, an entertainment publication, dated March 14th, 1980. At the beginning of this investigation, there was speculation that this Jane Doe may have been Marguerite Mary Maiden, a missing woman from Biloxi, who most often went by her nickname, Peggy. Peggy was a 60-year-old woman who lived in the 100 block of Hickory Hills Circle in Biloxi, who was described as a vivacious widow. Her husband, James Maiden, passed away in 1976 at the age of 63. Since he passed away, she lived alone with her pet bulldog named Macho near the 10th hole of the Sunkist Country Club golf course. Throughout the 60s and 70s, Peggy was an amateur golfer who competed in golf tournaments. Not only did she showcase her skills on the course, but she also held the title of President of the Sunkist Country Club Auxiliary. She was known as a local socialite and hosted an array of gatherings and parties for her friends, acquaintances, and neighbors. On April 30th of 1980, Peggy was abducted from her home in Biloxi. She has never been located, and her home was left in complete disarray. There were no signs of a forced entry into the home, but there had been a blood trail leading from the kitchen to the bathroom, and it looked as if whoever was responsible had tried to clean up the mess before deciding to simply leave it behind. Not only was she missing, but also Macho and her 1974 Buick Riviera. Days later, her car was located in a Holiday Inn parking lot 6 miles away with blood in the trunk. A security guard would later tell authorities that he saw a white male leaving the vehicle around 1:50 a.m. the day before. Macho would also thankfully be later located in the Turkey Creek area of Gulfport, Mississippi, which is about 15 miles from Peggy's home. There was a huge search conducted for Peggy, but still to this day, although suspected to be a victim of homicide with a $25,000 reward posted by her family, she has never been located. There is a strong theory in Peggy's case that she may have had mafia connections and her disappearance may have been a hit. Several members of the Dixie Mafia were questioned in relation to her case. This included mobster Steve Romano, who was arrested not long after Peggy's disappearance for something unrelated, and when he was arrested, they found Peggy's number in his pocket. They also questioned alleged Dixie Mafia hitman Ricky Red Brawley, who was identified as the suspect later on that was seen leaving Peggy's car in the hotel parking lot by the security guard. Ricky Brawley, though, was shot down by FBI agents during an altercation before authorities from Biloxi ever got the chance to question him regarding Peggy's disappearance. A Wiggins radio station had discussed the body being found near Wiggins during the time that they thought the Jane Doe could be Peggy, and this freaked out the Ainsworth brothers because they thought that the mafia was going to come after them. Thankfully, no one ever did, but in the end, it was discovered that Miss Wiggins was not Peggy Maiden. Miss Wiggins was believed to have been decades younger than Peggy was when she went missing. Miss Wiggins also had auburn hair while Peggy had blonde hair. Lastly, dental was completely inconsistent. Dental charts of the two women were compared and it just did not match up. Peggy Maiden today is still a missing woman. Through the years, this Jane Doe has been excluded as being multiple women from around the United States, from California to Texas to Alabama. Now, not far from the spot where Miss Wiggins was discovered lay an abandoned house that had crumbled to its foundation. All that remained at the time was the driveway and an old fence that bordered a garden. The ruins were entwined with thick vines reclaiming the land. Interestingly, the property was owned by an employee of the Stone County Sheriff's Department who primarily used the nearby field for growing cucumbers. Dawn Ainsworth figured that whoever did this to Miss Wiggins must have either been a local who knew this area was one that people rarely visited, or it was someone who was driving through looking for a perfect desolate area to dump a body. An area where it was so out of the way that anyone would probably have had the time to bury a body in a deep grave. Yet, whoever did this just left her there slightly covered. Due to her body being found off the highway, Mississippi Highway Patrol also helped in the investigation. Mississippi Highway Patrol investigator T.P. Naylor worked extensively to try to find out who Miss Wiggins was. He contacted multiple agencies all across the country, posted her dental chart in the American Dental Association's magazine, and since Miss Wiggins did have a spinal stress common with dancers, he actually reached out to over 40 professional entertainment companies. The piece of magazine from the entertainment magazine was located near her remains, which did push the theory that she may have been in the business. No one he spoke to recognized her though. This torn piece of magazine may have not even been related to her case. We don't know. If it was her profession and not her husband's paying for it, she may have made a decent income due to the amount of dental work she had done. This type of work in 1980 would have cost her between $10,000 to $12,000, or today between roughly $38,000 and almost $46,000. Naylor went ahead and hired a sketch artist named Gwendolyn Cannon to create a drawing of what the woman may have looked like in life. This is the main sketch still today used for reference in this case, a case that had many resurgences since 1980, one of those being 2013. Christy Johnson, a forensics instructor at the University of Southern Mississippi, had joined forces with the Harrison County Sheriff's Department to investigate unsolved cases. Although Miss Wiggins was not initially from Harrison County, the department was heavily involved in the forensic testing for the investigation. One day, out of nowhere, Christy received a call from an officer in Pascagoula, Mississippi, who was delving into cold cases in Jackson County. An anthropologist from Oklahoma mentioned 2 Mississippi Gulf Coast cases to him, 2 Jane Doe cases, one being Miss Wiggins and the other being Harrison County Jane Doe. Harrison County Jane Doe is a Jane Doe located by hunters on November 10th of 1980 in Biloxi. Her cause of death is undetermined, but she is believed to be a homicide victim. Her age was put between 19 to 25 years old, her height between 5 feet 2 inches to 5 feet 5 inches, and her post-mortem interval is between 3 to 18 months. Christy could not believe no one at the Harrison County Sheriff's Department was working on either case, especially not the Jane Doe local to them. She immediately requested any records on either and worked tirelessly on trying to piece together who they could be. With Miss Wiggins' case, she decided to start from the very beginning, quickly realizing many of the original files had been lost. She decided to speak to the Ainsworth brothers, original investigators, and comb through files in old cabinets at the departments. She was hoping to find some crime scene photos, but unfortunately there were none. With the manner in which this woman was killed, Christy looked into serial killers, but she didn't seem to connect her to any. She started also diving into the theory that with the build of Miss Wiggins, possibly she had been in the military. There had been a few women who had gone missing from Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, but Miss Wiggins did not fit the description of any of them. From there, Christy decided to work towards getting her in NamUs, or the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. Miss Wiggins' NamUs case was officially created on September 9th of 2013. She was compared to thousands of missing people on the site and unfortunately matched none of them. Christy decided to go through with conducting isotope testing on her. If you do not know what isotope testing is, in simplest terms, scientists can take samples of things like hair or bone and examine the isotopes found in them. From there, they are able to see where on Earth this person may have spent some time. Results from this method of testing were low quality. Christie chalked this up to possibly being because of the cleaning chemicals originally used on the bones of Miss Wiggins back in 1980. The results, although low quality, stated that Miss Wiggins may have spent time in the Midwest or Northwest region of the United States. After the identification of the Golden State Killer as Joseph James D'Angelo in 2018 as a result of genetic genealogy performed by Othram Inc. in Texas, Christie knew that the next step for this Jane Doe was genetic testing. So Othram was contacted. Othram is an American corporation specializing in forensic genetic genealogy. The process of genetic genealogy involves extracting an unknown individual's DNA, creating a DNA profile from that DNA, and uploading that profile into a genetic database in the hopes of locating familial DNA. This sometimes involves genealogists creating an entire family tree in an attempt to find the closest family member to the person and questioning that person to see if they know who the John or Jane Doe could be. Othram took on the case, eventually creating a DNA profile and uploading that profile into genetic databases. In January of this year, Captain Austin Barnett of the Stone County Sheriff's Department decided to take on this case as well, stating, quote, "This is the only cold case that we have involving an active homicide investigation. We took a look at it and decided to run with it, especially since the DNA profile was already being built up." Othram was able to conclude that the unknown woman was likely half Brazilian and half Syrian or Lebanese, that she was likely an immigrant or one of the children of an immigrant to the country, or possibly a traveler. Othram, who I have worked numerous times before with, is solving cold cases left and right every single month, but they're having a bit of trouble with this one. This is most likely due to the fact that she may have not originated in the United States or may not have much family here, especially family who may have their DNA in a genetic database like Ancestry or 23andMe. Captain Barnett told WLOX in March of this year, "As time goes on, we're fighting time. However, we just have to remain hopeful. Right now, our main goal is to identify Miss Wiggins. Just as if it was my kid or your family member, they would want to know where they are, so that's why it's important." Christie Johnson went on to say, "Just because this case happened 40 years ago doesn't mean that it's any less important than any current case. It just means there's a family out there missing her for even longer. And I think that may be even more of an important reason to work the case because somebody knew her. Somebody may be missing her even today." Now, I get a lot of questions. Probably one of my most asked questions is, if we have something like genetic genealogy and companies like Othram exist, why are there still so many John and Jane Does? This is why. The inability to locate family or close enough family that would know who the person was in life. That's the issue, especially with many of these databases being here in the United States and the person may have come from anywhere in the world. The case of Miss Wiggins is definitely in a stage of limbo currently, just like the last case I covered here on my channel of Tempe Girl. Both cases are of people who are strongly believed to be of different backgrounds. There haven't been any close matches as a result of genetic testing, and the ones overseeing the cases are hoping someone who recognizes them and may be related to them will enter in their DNA on a genetic site to eventually be linked to them. If you have any information regarding the case of Miss Wiggins, you are urged to call the Stone County Sheriff at 601-928-7251 or visit mscoastcrimestoppers.org. If you are interested in submitting your DNA for Othram to possibly solve this case or another, I will have the link down below in the description of this video to do just that. Of course, this video was primarily focusing on her, the victim, and who she may have been, but this is still a homicide investigation. Someone or multiple people did this to her. From what I could find, they never located any evidence relating to her killer or killers. In my personal opinion, to leave nothing behind, it makes you think, could this person or these people have done this before? That right there is a terrifying thing to consider all of its own. I do want to say that there is very little information regarding this case, but Lindy Berryhill did a 3-part write-up for this case for the Stone County Enterprise that I will link below if you all want to check that out. Of course, this case is devastating in general, but I feel like when it comes to a Jane Doe case, when they find evidence that she may have given birth, it adds such a different view of the case, such a deep sadness from a different perspective. I know that every John and Jane Doe out there had friends, they had family, they were somebody's child, but to think of a child growing up and going throughout life and not knowing where their parent is just so insanely devastating. I've talked to multiple people who have had parents go missing, and it's something that haunts them from the day they realized that their mother or father was gone. Especially with a company like Othram on this case, I really do hope that there are some updates very soon. I hope that everyone's December is going well, and I want to thank you all for taking a little bit of time out of your day to hear about Miss Wiggins's case. If there are any other John or Jane Doe cases that you possibly want me to cover here on my channel, make sure to send those requests over to gabulosiscaserequests@gmail.com. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day wherever you are. Stay safe like always, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.